Welcome to the presentation. So glad you're here. I'm Chip Cooper, e-commerce attorney. Now, there are three items below to help you learn a little bit more about me. The website, ecommerceattorney.io, of counsel to the Atlanta law firm of Jones and Haley, and formerly adjunct professor of law at Wake Forest University School of Law. Now, enough about me. The presentation is really about you. So what will we be discussing in this presentation? Essentially, I'm going to be introducing two complementary AI legal tools. And you may be thinking, that sounds maybe interesting, but what's the overarching benefit to me? What's in it to me? Well, the overarching benefit is that these tools, if used correctly, and I'm going to explain how to use them correctly. So assuming that they're used correctly, the overarching benefit is they'll help you avoid getting shut down by the FTC online. So let's get started with the presentation. Now, before we get into the introduction and explanation of these two AI tools, it's really important to understand some background information in order for the tools to really make sense and for you to get maximum benefit from their use. So let's begin with this announcement by the FTC. You see it's dated September 2024, and it's announcing a crackdown regarding deceptive AI claims. And this crackdown actually has an official name given to it by the FTC, not by the marketing community. It is Operation AI Comply, which is somewhat significant because it's not every day that the FTC names an operation, and it does mean that this is somewhat significant. Now, the announcement was including only 5 enforcement actions at the time of the announcement. And it's important if you fast forward until today, and this presentation is being recorded in mid-June 2025, which is a little less than a year later after the announcement of Operation AI Comply. The original 5 enforcement actions have now grown to a total of 18. Now, my big takeaway from that fact is that is clear evidence that the FTC has been extremely aggressive in enforcing claims against deceptive AI claims by advertisers. So now let's dive into some of the AI-related claims that were part of this 18 enforcement actions. Let's essentially shine the spotlight on them. Now, I have done a lot of research in terms of these 18 cases. I've reviewed and analyzed each one, and the result is my finding that there are 3 very specific types of AI-related claims that were at play in the Operation AI Comply. And it's important that you understand what they are. So let's get into the list there that you see. Number 1, and of course we're going to go from very general to very specific. So the first type, number 1, would be non-specific relationship with AI. The idea is that the product merely includes AI, but there's no real claim, either express or implied, regarding about what the FT or what the AI really does. So a classic example of a claim would be AI enabled. Okay, so we move to type 2. This type of claim would be a non-specific implied claim of performance or superiority. So it's not specific in terms of a result, but there is an implied claim of performance or superiority involving a result, and that is based on an example. I think you will understand. An example would be AI powered or powered by AI. So now we're looking at a possibility that the power of AI might elevate the result of the claim, but we're not specific about what it might be. Then, of course, we move to the actual specific type of AI result claim. There, type number 3 you see, and there a very specific result generated by AI is promised. So a specific example would be if you are marketing some kind of detection device and you are promising, say, 98% effectiveness or 98% results, that would be a classic example of type 3 there for an AI-related claim. Now, there are important takeaways in green text there that I think are significant for you to understand about these types of AI claims. Number one, none of the defendants had any qualifying disclosure. Very significant, as we'll learn in just a minute. Number two, in my opinion, none of the defendants really had a clue about any of these specific types of ad claims, and certainly about how the FTC reacts to them. And then last, my opinion is that none of the defendants had a clue about what I regard, in my opinion, as the FTC AI game. And I don't use the term game disrespectfully. I use it actually in the context of business schools where they typically use game theory in order to practice decision making. So it's clear to me that none of these defendants really understood the game at all, and you need to have a really clear understanding of how the game is played, and that's what we're going to talk about with this information. Now, the information is really based on net impression, a very key factor or consideration in advertising law as it's enforced by the FTC. So what is net impression? Very simply, it is the message that a consumer essentially takes away from your ad. And it's not what you intend the message to be, it is what the consumer actually infers from your message. And a very simple way to express what net impression really is with the simple sentence, it's not what you say in your ad. Instead, it's what they think, they, of course, being consumers. So now I can introduce you to the idea that net impression is really important. And the reason is it is required by the FTC that you substantiate the net impression of each and every claim in your advertising, failing which you're involved in an FTC enforcement action. And I'll also leave you with this important takeaway, that there is a significant challenge in substantiation any type of ad claim that does involve AI as subject matter. And the reason is that the typical consumer has an understanding, a perception of the power of AI, and that it is essentially transformative technology. Now think about this. Let's go back, for example, to, I believe it's November of 2023 when ChatGPT was announced. At that time, if you got involved in it fairly quickly, you probably determined fairly quickly that the technology was a nice incremental, a cool incremental uptick in existing or over-existing technology. However, the more you used it, you rapidly updated your impression from nice uptick in technology to it's game-changing in terms of what it can do. And then finally, you updated it again based on use to it is not only game-changing, it is transformative technology. So it's this understanding, generally speaking, that AI involves transformative technology that permits or enables consumers to formulate exaggerated net impressions anytime they see an ad claim involving AI. Now, here's a classic example. Let's say that your product is a widget and it helps owners of Amazon stores to manage their store. Specifically, the AI component, it focuses on ad copy, generating ad copy that theoretically results very favorably. The AI component also was involved in some making more efficient some routine operations, and that's it. That's exactly what your AI does. However, typically when a consumer sees your ad claim, let's say AI powered, then the exaggerated net impression occurs based on their understanding, their perception of transformative technology. So that is the reason why I make the very clear statement that you have a serious challenge in substantiating any claim that involves an AI element. And here is where you're now involved in the so-called AI game. So because of the fact that consumers generally will reach the conclusion of exaggerated net impressions, you need to provide some guardrails in order to lower the scope or lower the net impression of the consumer into a message that you can actually substantiate. And that's what we mean when I refer to the term guardrail management of your claims involving AI. And we do the guardrail management. The tools involved in doing guardrail management are essentially disclosures that qualify the scope, which involves exaggerated net impressions by consumers. Also, at the very bottom, it's extremely important that the disclosures that you need to make for establishing guardrails actually will differ depending on the type of AI claim you make, type 1, type 2, or type 3. So this information critically important for your understanding of how to use and benefit from the AI tools that I will introduce. So here we are actually introducing the first AI tool, and you can see the title of it there, FTC AI Claims Case Explorer Widget. That's a mouthful. So what does the widget do, and what problem does it help you solve? Well, very simply, the AI widget helps you do legal research regarding specific types of AI-related claims. So think about doing this type of research as part of your planning for advertising strategies with your new product or your existing product. It's really critical that you do the research, and there's a very difficult way to do it and a very simple, quick, and easy way to do the research. The difficult way, you've got to know what cases you're looking for. You've got to look them up. You've got to copy the material. You've got to read and analyze it, understand exactly how the FTC reacted to certain types of claims, et cetera, et cetera. It's so difficult to do and so time-consuming to do that you probably won't do it. And that's, of course, a huge problem. Now, the easy way, the simple, easy, and quick way is to let the widget do all the heavy lifting for you. So the widget will do that research very, very quickly and present it in a way that's easy to follow. So if you look at the image below, there is an image there of a drop-down menu. And you see that this menu is listing type 1 in terms of an AI disclosure or an AI ad claim. Now, if you click on the drop down, you'll see that it lists all three of the specific types of AI claims. Let's assume that you clicked on the drop down and you selected type number 2. If that's the case, this is what you would see in terms of output. So let's actually zoom in a little bit and see that there are two cases. Let's focus on accessibility. Now, the type of information presented is very easy to review and understand. It starts at the very top with the date the FTC filed the action, the name of the defendant, accessibility, and it defines the product that was involved in the case, website, accessibility, widget. So now we move down to the types of ad claims. Type 2, obviously, that's what we're looking for, but also accessibility used a type 3 as well, and some of these cases have more than one type of ad claim. So if you look past the definition of the type of claim, you will see the actual claim up in number 2, AI powered. So you see exactly what the claims at issue were that gave rise to the enforcement action in the first place. Then you see the FTC allegations about the issues related with those claims. And then you see whether there was an ad claim disclosure. In other words, Was there an effort to provide guardrails? The answer, of course, is no. None were attempted. And then the final result is indicated here, a consent order for a $1 million settlement. And then finally, there is a link. If you click the link, you will see additional FTC information about this case. And in some cases, you'll actually see a copy of the complaint that the FTC filed in order to initiate the enforcement action. And that can be very helpful if necessary. So I think you can see how this widget really does all the heavy lifting. It only produces information regarding the specific claim you're interested in, and then it presents it in a way that's easy to review and digest and understand. Clearly the easy way, the simple, easy, and quick way to do the research that you need to do to plan your advertising strategy for your AI-enabled product. So now let's move to the second of the two AI legal tools. And essentially, it's a framework, and you can see there from the title, FTC AI Marketing Claims Disclosure Framework. So what does this tool do? And specifically, what type of problem does it help you solve? Well, let's assume you have finished your research with the widget. You have defined how you want to proceed with certain types of ad claims involving AI, but now you need to get into the qualification, the applying the guardrails in order to reduce the net impression of your ad claim to something that you can actually substantiate. And that's exactly what the framework does. It helps you figure out the disclosures, which are the guardrails. So let's take a look at exactly how it goes about doing this. So this is an excerpt taken from the framework, and let's go quickly through exactly the types of information that it provides. So you need to understand that there's logic built into the framework. And you start with this question: does the tool, your product, claim a specific result? If the answer is yes, then there's branching logic for other considerations below. If the answer is no, then you proceed to this basic question. Despite not claiming a specific result, evaluate whether the general nonspecific claim creates an implied net impression of performance or superiority. Now, if you didn't understand the previous background information, you wouldn't have a clue as to the meaning of that question. That's why the background was so important. So now we look at information below that question, specific types of ad claims that would be triggered. Obviously, you see there AI powered. And then with asterisk below, in terms of bullet points, you see some additional instructions that may guide you into thinking about how to articulate these types of qualifying disclosures. And then finally, there are actually example disclosures, which we don't recommend you simply just copy, but you use them as guidelines to modify and tailor into specific disclosures that are applicable to how you limit the scope of your specific ad claim. So that is how the framework can work together with the widget information, doing the heavy lifting on research. This helps you take the second step of refining and creating the guardrails in the form of qualifying disclosures. So now we've reached the end of the presentation, but before we sign off, a big question here to be discussed, and that is, how in the world do you how do you get the benefit of these two AI legal tools? Well, you need to understand that there is a link. You see it at the bottom. And before I continue, I would certainly recommend you copy this down. The website URL discussed earlier, ecommerceattorney.io/FTC-AI-tools. Now, it's important to have access to that link. Now, in terms of the framework, it's pretty simple. You access the link, and then you can download the framework. You can take a copy of it and save it to your hard drive for use. Pretty simple. Now, the widget is different because it's embedded in one of my website pages. Actually, this page for this URL, ecommerceattorney.io/FTC AI tools. So you will need to go to this web page in order to access the widget. And you're probably going to need to want to do it over time a number of times. One reason is the widget is continually updated every time there is a new case filed by the FTC involving an AI-related claim as part of the ongoing operation of AI Comply. So you really need to have access to this link so that you can go back periodically in order to review any updates with the widget, or simply to just do additional research, maybe for a different or new product. So now we have actually concluded the presentation. Thanks for watching.